Alrighty, good evening. This is Jonathan Albin, also known as Game Master J, and this is Nycos Nightly News. Tonight we've got stories coming from two very different ends of the world, and we will be talking about that in a moment. But for the time being, I wanted to thank you for being here with us. If you aren't familiar with the channel, this is NycosRPG, and this is the fantasy realm of Nycos, which is the game world that I run sessions in. Roughly 5 times a week. So we will be looking at stories that are going on in and around the environs where the players are familiar, and in that time we will talk about specific locations where they might be, and then we also talk about other places in the world where there are things of import that have become globally known through a very intricate news system created by the gnomes. But there's a whole story there. We'll do an actual in-depth on them in the near future. In the meantime, if you haven't before and you like the channel, go ahead. If you haven't yet, go ahead and follow the channel here on Twitch, and also watch for our videos to be regularly uploaded on YouTube at NycosRPG as well. So before we get started, let's go ahead and talk about where we're going to be. Alrighty, on the map of Nycos, we're going to be looking at two locations. We are going to be looking at Barbas, which is the pirate capital of the Twain Sea. And we are going to be looking at Gilder, which as yet has not actually been placed on the map, but is in this general area here. These two kingdoms are not obviously bordering one another, and there's a lot of conflict going on everywhere. But the story does continue no matter where you are in the world. So by giving updates and information, it perhaps gives guidance to the players on which areas they want to go and visit, and may also instill you as a part of the audience to want to pursue information in those areas, in which case we are constantly building new campaign groups. So just be aware that we're looking at those opportunities as well. So let's go ahead and start off with Barbas, shall we? Alrighty. So Barbas is a sea-based kingdom, although they have some significant land holdings from their many iterations protecting their own. But the city of the Sea Princes overlooks what is the largest combined piracy operation in both the Twain and Outer Seas. So the information coming from there is not only going to influence what's going on in that particular kingdom, but anywhere where the sea reaches the land, so to speak. So let's go over these. First of all, the formal alliance has been renewed with Mercia. As you may know, Mercia is a major military force across the sea on the continent of Gralum, and they are well known for being an entrenched soldiery for those who are downtrodden and such. The Mercians have been known to support through their mercenary forces and trade mechanisms the development of whole new countries, and are in particular a particular ally of the newly formed country of Elwendale. We'll talk more about that in the future. At this point, realize that this renewed agreement prevents the pirates from raiding cities under the Mercian banner, but it also provides a income source to the pirates through the landing of their ships in these occupied territories. There is a protection fee somewhat that is has been agreed to, and so therefore this guarantees a safe travel for most ports along the Twain Sea in particular, and to a lesser degree the Outer Sea. In particular, the east coast of Yarlum will be problematic because, as you'll see, there's a conflict developing with both the Mere and other coastal properties on the east coast of Yarlum. We'll come back to that. So just this last week, the Maruk, which have not been heard from in close to 100 years, have actually clashed with Prince Fithian in the northern part of the Twain Sea. It appeared to be that the Maruk battle flotilla was was intending to land at Tirkun, but the uh, cleverness of Prince Fithian did break up that flotilla and drive it back into the Black Waters. So it's the raids have been increasingly uh, volatile, and the Maruk have seemingly taken advantage of the better navigation now that the astral pattern has revealed itself. But nonetheless, Prince Fithian, when asked about it, stated he was fairly uh, confident that there would not be any sufficient landing of the Maruk for at least the foreseeable future. Because of this, however, Twain Sea operations among the pirate princes has increased greatly. The combined operations have taken kind of a front seat compared to the independent operations of the past. And when asked about that, the sea princes have collectively responded with no response, no comment at all. On the southern front, when you near the southern end of Yarlum, there was a conflict with an engagement with a mere submersible, and it has sparked controversy because up until this point, the Mirror fleet have been pretty clever about maintaining their secrecy, and their movements have been rather circumspect. Well, this is the first time that an open cargo vessel was engaged on the surface by one or more of the pirate princes, and this has sparked controversy on whether or not the previously devised intercoastal alliance will be able to be held. Because Mir has such a strong connection with Bylon, and Bylon has been such a critical trade partner with the Sea Pirates, this is maybe problematic, and so we're watching out for that. Now, this also happens to coincide rather neatly with the launch of the first Sky Galleon, Endeavor, by the Pirates of Barbas. This Sky Galleon has a displacement of nearly 3 times the largest oceanic vessel in their fleet, and rivals the rumored size of a siege craft that was under the control of the Primus Eldrin. There is concern about whether this will be seen as a provocation by the highland species, but at this point, the Primus have not responded at all to the launch. In a similar story, the Order of Falan has reinstated itself at a temple in the city of Tessara, south of Barbas, and the city is not yet established within the trade routes, and at this point have been provided support predominantly from the Kingdom of the Kells, a small city-state that doesn't even register on localized maps yet. And these worshippers from the Kells are bringing back and reestablishing the regular and organized rituals of the ancient order, and in particular because the temple at Tessara was, during a previous iteration some time back, the centerpiece of the Falanese faithful around the world. So this may be something significant, but it may not. We will definitely be keeping our eyes on this story. Now, Prince Kale who is the descendant of the family of the Kells, though he, of course, splintered off and joined the fraternal brethren of Barbas, did respond to the Mere Incursion article, saying that if the mortals make another move, they may find themselves in the eye of the what was the way he worded it? Pardon me for my distraction here. I just saw a typo. I got to fix it. It's driving me crazy. Oh, yeah, beauty is in the eye of the broadcast. I'm sorry, that that he will find himself in the eye of the broadcaster. So this is a reference, of course, to the 8th iteration first broadcast, which called for the elimination of mortal populations with impunity. That was later, within a few weeks, rescinded by a second broadcast that seemed to be coming from the same person, albeit with some nuanced differences that established mortals as equal with their brethren on Nycos. And even to this day, they are still considered to be somewhat of the outsiders. All right. And then finally, there has been a move by the pirate princes in calling for the first subsurface negotiations to begin. And this is interesting because they have specifically not invited the Mir to this conversation, claiming that they only wish to speak to those species that are true denizens of the deep. And this is a clear affront or insult to the Mir, who have spent the last 300 years keeping the peace and maintaining a fair relationship with the surface dwellers. Nonetheless, this will be a rather charged meeting in the future, and those that are interested in gathering more information should, if they can, get a chance to visit the city before the conversations begin somewhere around Christmas Day this year. Next, Barbos is now officially seeking redress, as this Mermati surface fleet did break the agreement that had been the Intercoastal Alliance, and therefore they're looking for a financial redress or at least some kind of compensation for the damage done to their credibility. And we'll, of course, have to see what comes of that in the future. Alrighty, let's go back here for a second. So, before we get on to our next story, I want to thank you for being here so far. Nycos Nightly News does cover the stories of the world of Nycos, but we are also in a bit of a promotional drive because we are increasing our visual presence at the Board Game Paradise store. And so for more information on this and our other activities, do check out our Patreon account at patreon.com/Nycos. Alrighty, back to our other story. Moving to the kingdom of Gilder, and that's in the northwestern portion of Yarlum and the southern portion of Nordlum. The Citadel of the Makers has made reports that they have been having difficulty with increased number of refugees crossing over their borders from Elwendale and in Andara. This secondhand refugees problem mainly stems from the conflicts that have been pressuring Slumber, including the arrival of the army of I'm such a professional news story guy. Yeah. The Morrowind army, let's just state that has arrived in the city, and So far, it has been peaceful, but nonetheless, there are considerable numbers of Bathrikin and other species that have abandoned Swarthir in favor of properties to the north, and Gilder is among them. The Inandarin have, of course, agreed to maintain their population transfer through a partnership that was recently reinstated. Get that changed too. Goodness gracious, my fat fingers typed horribly today. And this process has, of course, caused there to be some stress between the two kingdoms. But with the partnership now reinstated, the Gildarians are now fairly certain that they can maintain control if they can coordinate with Elwendale to prevent too much of an overflow. Because of that, however, the Crown Guard fortress along the border with Elwendale has met its first foes in that there were several dissident groups of Bathrikin apparently dispatched from the city that was formerly known as Draconia, and has actually engaged the Crown Guard fortress just only months after its inception. So this has been a good thing because it proves that the Gildarian were on top of things when they launched the fortress, and this has been seen as a good thing. And the challenge with that, of course, is that that there's an expenditure involved with the Crown Guard. There is a footprint, and there is an army to maintain, and that all, of course, costs money. Now, for this reason, Regent Valan himself just recently established as the formal leader of Gilder, has led the first, or is beginning the launch of the first Eldermere hunt into what was the area known as Dragonbone Pass in the past, and has not been yet reclaimed. And so those who might be interested in becoming part of the clearing of the Eldermere might want to reach out to Regent Valan and get more information about that. Now, in the vacuum, since the recent passing of the king of Gilder, a transplanted religion has stepped in, providing soldiery through the Cordian Knights to maintain the peace in areas where there was conflict. And so far, this has not led to any bloodshed, but the Cordian Knights, being largely made up of Golian and other species that are not directly associated with the injunction, has put some bit of a dire light on the future of the realm. So watch out for that as well. Now, of particular note, Astronaut Observatory claims to have observed strange lights in the last few nights, and this portends well for the possible first sign of the iteration. Now, there have been several rumors, including the rediscovery of the land of Nyx far to the west. There have been several claims of advancements along the idea of the iterational timeline, but the first true sign of the iteration will, of course, be the arrival of the candle. And so there are people at the observatory, although they have not yet confirmed it, are suggesting that certain strange lights have been visible from the observatory. And for more information on that, we will be talking in the next few weeks or so with some of the individuals from the observatory about what that possibility might look like. Without much surprise, in the shadow of the recent Highland Games, the people of Jadaroon, the gnomes of Jadaroon, have once again raised their relatively annual claims of sovereignty demands, and as such, there may be a new movement for this, as Regent Valan does have a radically different positioning than the former King of Gilder did. This, of course, has some long-term ramifications, as they are one of the few remaining Fey realm access points, and if they do decide to exert their sovereignty prices and such on Eldrin made goods, and Fey realm resources may be hindered. So we'll keep you informed with that. Now, with the success of the Highland Games and the great number of participants that now hunger for competition, the plans for a Middle Kingdoms game to be held in Eldrasar in the next year or so advance. There have been a lot of highly affluent organizations that are showing their support for such an action. And so make sure you keep your eyes here on NycosRPG and Nycos News to get the information on that. Now, as we mentioned last week, there were several sightings recently of white riders, but this next story is rather staggering. It does appear that there may be... Why do I keep making typos? I guess I'm in such a hurry. There seems to have been a recovered corpse of a white rider recently. Now, according to mythology, the white riders are virtually immortal and or maybe spiritual beings. There has not been any direct connection between them and mortal beings or other surface creatures, although they have been accused of several rather strident murders of the past. But if this is true, if there is a white rider that has died and we have access to, Nycos News will bring you the newest information on that. So keep your eyes peeled to NycosRPG for more information. Going forward through the Nycos Nightly News, as you may recall, we do broadcast every night at 11 p.m. and we'll be continuing to do so going forward. Now, we do have additional time on our clock, so to speak. And so before we leave here, I did want to give some note to something that has not been covered very well yet in the Nycos News. This is the easy-to-use Nycos Order of the Veils connection chart. So if you are familiar with the world of Nycos, the 10 markings here represent the Order of Veils, and of course there are 10 emblems. It's called the Order of 9 Veils for a reason, and we'll get to that in a moment. But these arrows that connect the spaces are showing the intricacies between the various veils and their connection to the other veils. And that's important because the Byzantine nature of the relationships means that some of the veils have an appreciation for the others and some disregard them completely. So I will be doing a new broadcast on this subject more than likely tomorrow. But in the meantime, have a good look at that easy to use map. And if you want to communicate with us more closely, of course, you can join our Discord. The link is down below. And if you do, you'll have access to this graphic so you can take a look at it in detail and kind of see what the different colors represent and all of that. We'll be going more into that in a later broadcast. Until then, it's Jonathan Alvin. This is Nycos Nightly News. We are coming to the end of our broadcast. If you have any comments or whatever, you can go ahead and put those in the chat box right now, or you can, of course, leave it in a comment on the YouTube channel. Until then, otherwise, I'm Jonathan Alvin, Game Master J, and this has been